Think it's time we rise up, people. It's time's up, people. You can talk all you want, but it won't change a thing. I wanna know what you do.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Up and Up. I am so happy today to be bringing you an amazing activist. Her name is Liz Johnson. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
All right. Well, I want to talk about your organization, and I know you were talking about, a little bit before we started recording about how this kind of goes back a little ways. So let's kind of get the history of where your organization came from.
Well, actually, my organization was born out of my experience.
Okay.
And what happened was when the 2008 financial crisis happened, I was building a house on water down in a county here. And before I could even live in the house note jumped from $1,300 to almost $5,000. So I'm wondering what in the world, what happened? And long story short, it was foreclosed on. And I thought, what the hell is going on? And plus that, I have a small business where I worked with builders and developers and architects, and everybody was like, what's going on? Yeah. I mean, plans had to be scrapped and nobody knew what was happening. So after I went through my ordeal, I wondered, well, I want to know what happened. So I started looking into what happened, which led me to, and there's a lot between this, what I'm about to say and what I just said, it led me to the con. I don't know whether or not you've seen the con.
Yes, I have.
It led me to the con because when I talked with Patrick Lovell, and he first called me and he told me about the con, I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew everything there was to know about this scenario, what happened and everything. And when I watched the con, it told the story in such a way that made me say, this is what everybody needs to see. Because we were not having any success in the courts, no matter what our defenses were, no matter how good our case was, no one ever got any kind of traction. We never saved anybody's house. So now here we are. We're at the place really where there was a moratorium, when the COVID came in, and believe me, I'm leaving out a whole lot. Where right. COVID came in and the moratorium started. Now we're going to be looking at a whole lot of people who did not pay their house notes, who are being foreclosed on. And one of the reasons why I'm delighted to be on your show is because we realize that in order for us to be able to make noise and be effective against what I've been calling the bottom feeders of Wall Street, the crooked banks and so on, is we've got to really be able to speak in one voice. We have got to be able to make noise like Black Lives Matter. And all the time we've been working on this, we thought that because we were right legally, that we would be able to go into court, argue our case, and for the judge to say, you're right, you get to save your house. Because one of our main things was that people were being foreclosed on by people who had absolutely they had no skin in the game. It's like, for instance, you buy a house and Bank of America is your lender, you thought. Well, the notes were sold on Wall Street and sold and sold and sold. So the people were being foreclosed on by people through whatever magic Wall Street uses or the law uses. They were being foreclosed on by people who had who they didn't have to make a bill with. And here in Maryland, what happened was the banks got some legislation introduced saying to the bank, to the person who was suing someone for their home, if you can bring in a copy of the note and the deed of trust, we will declare you the holder and you can foreclose on these people. Well, that was part of our argument. Then the laws were introduced. And so those laws were introduced and we found ourselves going up an uphill battle in another way. Like now this is a law. It's been all codified and everything, and it's a law. We have to forget about the fact that the person does not own the note and never had a nickel in this dime. We got to find other way to defend people. So we went into doing various things like showing them how to do bankruptcy, which that didn't work. It just held off the storm. And so many people here in this county alone, which is Prince George's County, Maryland, over 75,000 houses as of the 2019 were lost to foreclosure, 75,000 houses. And we're just not talking about the people who bought the house and owned it and were foreclosed on. We're dealing with generational wealth.
Yeah.
So that how nice that you could leave a house to your kid when you go to the happy hunting grounds, you know. But then all these homes were lost, generational loss. People's homes were up, their lives were upset. Right now, today, people are still being foreclosed on. They are living in their cars, living in tents, homelessness all around us. And still they're still taking people's homes. Right. So then I thought, you know, we've done everything. The one thing we have not done was involve people at the grassroots level. Well, you know, because the janitors, the people who do your lawn, the housewives, the maids, they think that maybe perhaps they're not smart enough to be a part of this and make a difference. That people like you are smart people, so you all will take care of it. But what they don't really realize is that no, the power is with the people. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, let me come up with a way to really get ordinary people into this battle. You know, there's enough smart people who are writing books and making movies. And then we get into our little huddles and we talk about this among ourselves. But then, you know, the truck driver doesn't even know what we're doing. They don't know anything about this battle. All they know is they lost their house. Mm-hmm. So then I devised what I call an action plan, which consists of teams. My action plan consists of teams. For instance, I have the media team, the financial team, the legal team, the faith-based team, so that the Spanish-speaking team, so that maybe perhaps people can look at this and say, geez, I can do that. Mm-hmm. So that, my next door neighbor will say, oh, that's okay, Liz, I can take this to my minister. So that we can call and get the names and contact information for everyday people, so that my media technology team can write a letter, send it out, press a button and say, send this letter to your councilman, send this letter to Nancy Pelosi, send this letter to the people so that we can make noise. Because one of our people in Florida, one of the attorneys in Florida, went to court telling the judge all the reasons why his client should not be foreclosed on. And it's reported that the judge said to our attorney, why should I believe you? No one else is talking about this. I don't hear about this from anybody else. Why should I believe you? Wow. Judgment for the bank. So I said, he's right. This judge was right. We're not talking about it. Everybody's in their own little silo. Yeah. This one has a case and they go to court. But there should be 5,000 people backing up that case. So that if we could get a legal team together, a people of attorneys from all over the country, get them on a Zoom, thank God for Zoom, so they can strategize with one another. But what happens is this lawyer's over here in Indiana, this was over here. And even though they all have the different laws in the different areas that they have to deal with, just to be able to strategize with even Supreme Court law or existing laws to see how maybe perhaps they can help people in each other's area. So we can get them all together. If we can get the financial people together, finding out where the money that they talk about in the con, where it's hidden. Do you realize that with Bernie Madoff, that the trustees in that case are trying to claw back $50 billion to give back to the people who invested with Bernie Madoff? $50 billion. So then why can't we claw back this money that these bottom feeders have gotten and put in their pockets from the sale of people's homes? For instance, in the con, I remember that they mentioned that one of these Wall Street kingpins, gave himself a $124 million bonus. I mean, I'm like, what the hell did he do? Did he, raise the sun or something? All that notwithstanding, why can't we get that money back? Why can't we claw it back? So the financial team, if they have the kind of knowledge they have, let's find out where that money is. Let the legal team decide how we're going to get it. Let us figure out how we're going to give it back to the people who were foreclosed on illegally. And that's why the con fits in so much really with what I have in mind, and why I want to be able to show it to rank and file people so they will realize what happened How was their house taken and they didn't even know? What about the predatory loans that people sign?
Right.
Like,
Of course, when we have some type of remedy, when of course, with the housing crisis back in, was that 2008 or 2009?
2008 is when it all started.
I mean, when that happened, what was the result at the end of it? They put a bunch of money towards the banks. They bailed out the banks. They didn't bail out the people. People still lost their homes. People were still in desperate situations. The banks did not pass that on. It did not trickle down to the people who actually, as you were saying, not only themselves, but generational wealth and things like that. That's a major way to pass on generational wealth, right? Is in your property.
The American way.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. And you know what? I love it because, especially right now, we're talking about Striketober. That's what we're in, right? When we're talking about this idea of collective bargaining and collective, what that really does is that brings together, as you were saying, the grassroots, so that people can join together, not only to understand that this is that this is happening, and then, kind of pool your thoughts and everything, but also to understand the little tricks that happen, right? Because there are these little kind of tricks that people don't know. They always seem to be able to get around things. You know what I mean? They got tons of money. What do they get? Of course, they're going to devise all these different, silly little ways that, end up making it so that they have the upper hand, right? They can get you however, right? But if you have people all around the country who are coming together to say, this is what happened to me, this is what happened to me, then we can understand the tricks. We can understand the strategy, and then I would hope that we could preempt that strategy and be prepared for it. So what I'm curious is, it seems like right now, you're in an information, organizing. This is the organizing stage and pulling people together, right? It's organizing and then mobilizing and then, whatever. So right now you're in the organizing stage and really pulling people together. Have you gotten a lot of people coming together?
It's interesting you're asking me that because I asked, we have our first chapter in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As a matter of fact, I had Fatima. I said to her, stand by, just in case she wants to talk with you, right, so that you can see what they're doing. You see, because they're stealing people's houses all over the country in various ways. Right. In Fatima's area in Milwaukee, they're talking about anti-displacement. So it's all cloaked in anti-displacement. In California, we have people whose homes are being taken through the probate courts. So here it's foreclosures. Right. And it's mostly people of color that are being victimized. And so I'm just saying that if I want us to all fly under the banner, justice for homeowners.
Yep.
And we will have chapters of justice for homeowners all over the country, and to show you how to organize in your community.
That's amazing.
And that is the thing we've got to do. We've got to organize within our communities. And we've got to help the rank and file and the everyday people realize there's something you can do.
Right.
Look at this list of teams that we have. Where do you fit? So that in the African American community, there's so much power in the churches. Mm-hmm. So many people. So that if we can help the people in the churches to understand, just give us your telephone number and your email address. And when we get ready to write a letter or to be able to support somebody, they can tell us how we can support you. We have one young lady who has a website that she started called Judicialpedia. And she's got all of these people to come. She started it all by herself, Janice Grenadier. She started it all by herself one day and told me she was starting it. Now she's got thousands of people who have written into her to tell their story of how they were defrauded. Yeah. But then we have the cons. So what I'm saying here, Jody, is there are all these people who know this happened. All of these people really who are crying and saying, look how I was defrauded. But despite that, as I said, to me, and what spurred me on was the fact that everybody's in their own little silo. I call them silos.
Yeah.
We need to come together. We need to bring our legal forces together. Let them get on a Zoom call and talk about what they're going to do. Here in Maryland, we started out with 0 lawyers. We now have 7 attorneys that are going to be meeting on a Zoom call and organizing in our community. But they've got to do the same thing in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They've got to do the same thing in Houston. They've got to organize within their communities because, as Bernie Sanders says, if you want to be an organized money, you have to organize people. Mm-hmm. And so It's one thing to say organize. It's another thing to say how to organize, which is really what we are trying to do and what we feel that we've done with this, with our action plan. This is how you organize. And once you get your team together, this is what your team is going to do. Your team does this, your team does that, your team, and this is how you get your team working so you're not spinning in place. Does anything of this make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely makes sense to me. Absolutely. I think this is amazing. I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, who can I connect you with in New Hampshire? I have some ideas. I'll let you know after.
Okay.
But, absolutely. And I mean, I hate to harp on it, or no, I don't hate to harp on it, but just the idea, I think, going with your silos, it very much feels, it's very much an isolating experience, right? When you go through something like that and you realize, not in this context, but in other contexts, I can identify with that feeling of kind of, it's like you against the man. And, this giant corporation or blah, 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 this kind of faceless, whatever. And, they always have tricks up their sleeve. It's interesting that you say that Milwaukee's dealing with one thing, whereas California is dealing with another, because they have the capacity to be able to make sure that in each state they can, within those laws, they can kind of manipulate those laws in whatever way allows them to do it, which is really, it's just it's so devious. It's so devious. Like, let's look at these laws and how can we, put people out on the street in this state? Well, what allows us to do that?
It's evil, Jody.
It really is. It really is.
When you could stand there and take someone home, where, I literally, if I could tell you just this one story that sticks in my mind, and I talk about it all the time, where the sheriff came to evict this woman that I wish I could think of her name. Her mother was ill. They took the bed and set it up on the sidewalk and put the mother in the bed out on the sidewalk. I've, like with the 3-month-old baby living in a van where they put their stuff out. It was raining like thunderstorms, and so they waited between the thunderstorms and put all their stuff out on the street. So when this couple finally got a truck and they were lifting their sofa and things, water was just draining from their sofas and all. So when you could have people living in tents, it's homelessness all over. So another thing we're really pushing is tiny homes.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm sorry. You hit it. You struck a nerve. Okay, go ahead.
I've been saying that in order to be able to help the homeless, you got to give them a home. So why here in Maryland, we have all this open space? Why can't we build tiny homes there, provide people with the services they need, a bus service to get them to work, and so on, or get them to the store? Why can't we at least build these tiny homes? I work with architects and in my private business and developers, and they say, look, we can take a container and put a container and have a container ready in no time for a 3-bedroom house. Why can't we do that? Why do we keep looking at people being homeless and the banks putting people? It's just crazy. It keeps me up nights.
Yeah, I haven't properly introduced myself, I guess, but let me tell you what I do in my, professional life, is I am actually a homeless advocate. I work at a homeless shelter, and it's a transitional homeless shelter. My grandmother started it. She was a pastor's wife, so it's kind of funny how this all is kind of making sense. But the same idea, and this is one of those things that I've really been thinking about a lot, especially because what we do, in order to justify what really is pure evil, right? But in order to justify this, what we do is we vilify people who are homeless. We vilify people based on their financial situation and things like that. And then that allows us to kind of, deny them services and act like, no, they should just get a job, like whatever, all of these kind of things. And it's very demoralizing and it's isolating and it's very sad in our society. And so when you talk about tiny houses, this is something that I've been interested in for a long time. I've been interested in tiny houses because I want one myself. I'm going to retire in one. That's my plan. But also, for a variety of purposes, this could really help. We have, it's especially with homelessness. And the other thing about that is creating a tiny house community, at least in my opinion, right? Because what we do psychologically to people is absolutely traumatizing, and it's isolating and it's demoralizing and things like that. If you have a tiny house community where we're bringing back the community. So we're putting them in a place where not only is it putting a roof over their head, which is the only moral thing to do, but also it's renewing dignity. It's renewing their sense of community, and it's the opposite of what we do in our system. It's renewing those things that are really, I can't, I don't use the word evil lightly, but that are evil. Yeah.
It is. And Jody, you're so right. And I cannot understand why the powers that be are not looking at these things. I mean, is it people don't feel like they got, I was about to say, quit it. I was about to say the financial, they don't know how to get it so that, that they can get all the money from it. Yeah. Why is it when wintertime is coming, people are about to be foreclosed on? I mean, it's such a big problem until, as I said, I don't think I can think that we have not done is to organize our communities.
Yeah.
To get people screaming and yelling, to let them know that we know what they did and we know when they did it, and for people to really start yelling and screaming, all over the country.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one question. It might be a little bit divergent. I'm not sure, we didn't discuss questions before, but, I'm just curious, when we think about, okay, so we talk about these faceless companies. Like, I bought my house, my mortgage was sold 3 times before it landed with Wells Fargo, who I had divested from. I had divested from the bad banks and gone to my own credit union, whatever. But they sold it to Wells Fargo. I'm back with them. Anyway, Wells Fargo sucks. But anyway, but here's the thing. They're these faceless corporations that are so far away and they have all their lawyers and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? At the end of the day, they do have, who actually put those people on the street? You know what I mean? Like, who actually put that woman's bed on the street? Who actually did that?
The sheriff.
Because
who does it? The sheriff does it.
That's what I'm saying. We have individuals who are acting on behalf of these faceless corporations. And so what I'm getting to here is, yes, grassroots and organizing people in order to fight it, the legal battle and things like that. But I'm wondering is, how do we get to those people who are carrying out these horrible acts? Those are our neighbors. The sheriff could be my neighbor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but but you understand the sheriff operates at the behest of the courts.
Yeah.
So then, who do the courts act and who do the courts take their orders from?
Yeah.
In our case, it's like, hey, it's all about money.
Yeah.
You see, a lot of these judges, our judges are elected. So then who gives them money for their campaigns? I know that we were at, we had one of our local senators really working with us on some legislation that we were trying to introduce. Mm-hmm. And I had this lobbyist, while he and I were talking, this lobbyist came right up in our conversation. He said to the senator, hey, look, what committee do you want? What committee do you want this year?
Oh my God.
And he looked at him and he said, man, don't you see me talking? He said, yeah, but I want to know just tell me what you want. Because he knew who I was and I was talking with him. So he goes up and says to the senator right in front of me and interrupts our conversation and offers him whatever committees he wants, to whatever committee he wants. So then when you ask about who actually does the act, these people are all victims as well, because they're victimized. And when you really get down to it, I'm telling you, it's all about money, Jody. Yeah. It's all about Wall Street. It's all about the Steve Mnuchin's and the people who take over these banks. It's all about them. But I keep saying power to the people. We've got to get people involved in this, because these bottom feeders are not going to stop.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop. And if we don't start operating as a group, more so than, as I said before, in our little silos, I just don't see how we're going to be able to be effective.
I think
and that's the reason why I put together the action plan, because not only did I want to be able to bring ordinary people in, but I also wanted those of us who are already in the game to start working together, to start Zooming, like you and I are talking. And you mentioned somebody, this show, when we first started talking, I'm looking in my...
Luke Archer?
Exactly. And then there was a guy with whom I spoke, who was on his show, whose name is... I want you to know I've got all these things, he may have told you. And I thought that's wonderful when you were telling me how we all get together, how we all manage to find each other, because that shows the kind of togetherness that we have to have in order. And I wish I could find his name, Jesus, where can I find this guy's name that I talked with, who was going to be on a Zoom call with me. And then, anyway, I'm looking now at all these, you know how you have a bunch of papers around, don't you?
Oh, story of my life. They're like stacks in every room of my house somehow.
Everybody thinks, you know what I say, you can't come in. I think I say you can't come in because my house isn't dirty. It's just that it's filled with papers. Oh my God, I can't believe that I lost his name. He was just so compatible when I talked with him.
Oh, it's all right. If you find it later, we can put it in the comments or something.
Okay, good. And I heard him one day when I was, looking through my feed, and I heard him on Luke's show. Yeah. So I said, I'll try to reach him. So I did, and he answered the phone. I couldn't believe it when he answered the phone. So I said to him, if someone as important as you answers your own phone, and he was very gracious and said, oh, I'm not that important. But anyhow, so then this is the kind of togetherness that I'm talking about. So that now I know you and you know me. And so now we can start to, putting the chain together. Yeah. And I think this is what has to be really with the legal community. Mm-hmm. These lawyers that we know, the financial people we know, they all need to start talking together. That's right. They all need to start working together instead of being on a show, by themselves, and then they go. And they think it's wonderful, the con and what's happening with the con. They think it's wonderful, and I do too. But then they just go on home, and then they don't, I don't know, but it doesn't seem as if they're working together.
So let's move on. I mean, one thing that I really like to make sure that we get out, because I mean, I explained, we like to educate and all that kind of stuff, but the whole thing is about, getting people involved and how people can get involved. First of all, so what I really want to put out, put to you is how, what kind of opportunities are there for people to get involved? Where can they go and find information about it? How can people get active and do what you're saying? Let's coordinate.
We have a website. Okay. We have a nonprofit called Strategic Housing Solutions. Okay. Yes. And the way that we're going to tee this up is that people can go to shsmaryland.org. That's S like in Sam, H like in Harry, S like in Sam, Maryland.org. Mm-hmm. And on that website, we have listed teams, I forget what the tab we called it, but hold on, it's like join a team. Join a team is the name it's the tab is join a team. And then when they put in their contact information, there's going to be a form there with their contact information, and they can put their contact information, and I will hook them up with the person in their state, so that we can start doing that web. But then to go and put your information there, and then because we have activists already in these various areas, people like yourself where are you located, by the way?
I'm in New Hampshire.
Oh, my daughter lived in New Hampshire for such a long time, the Granite State.
Really? What part of New Hampshire?
Yeah, she did. She lived in, oh my God. I forget, but then she moved to Boston, and she lived in Boston for a very, very, very long time.
See, I went the other way, Boston too. I grew up just outside of Boston. So.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's someplace where they had a theater, an outdoor theater.
Well, I mean, we have one in Keene, but I don't. Middleton?
Is there a Middleton?
I think there is a Middleton. Yes, I don't know exactly where it is. But...
forget it. I'll ask her. I'll tell you next time. But we're talking 25 years ago. Like
yeah.
So I forget the name of the town where she lived in New Hampshire. Yeah, okay. And so that if someone goes and hears our broadcast and goes to shsmaryland.org and just puts their information there. The young lady is literally working on our website right now.
Wonderful.
As we speak. She is literally working on it, so we can put a form there where people can register. And then I will give it to the person in New Hampshire. But in the meantime, I want this person to stay connected to what we're doing so that we can have our Zoom calls and talk. The Zoom thing has been a wonderful thing in order to be able to connect people. It gives us a wonderful way to be talking back and forth. And so that's what they would do. They would just go to SHS, which stands for Strategic Housing Solutions, shsmaryland.org, and just click on Join a Team. and leave their contact information. It'll go to a form for them to fill out, and I will start hooking people up and whatever.
And we'll link that as well. We'll link your website so that people can click right on it in the caption.
Also, there's another, like someplace else you'd like to link with, it's Judicialpedia, where people went online and tell their stories from all over the country. She's got people from all over the country who have told their story, so that you maybe want to link that in as well.
Yeah,
but the most important thing that I see that needs to be done, Jody, is for the people, all of us have resources. You know, like I have resources, you have resources, but we need to bring our resources together so that we can be able to feed off of each other's resources, and to be able to bring in, as I said, the rank and file and the grassroots people. And I just somehow feel like this plan, and it's in draft, and we can always tweak it, where everybody can see how they can fit in and how they can do their part for being able to swell our ranks, where we have thousands of people who are writing to the powers that be in some state or this state or this situation. For instance, the young lady who did Judicialpedia, she just had a grand jury hearing on her foreclosure. And the one of the people who was against her was her ex-mother-in-law, who's an attorney in her town, who of course is connected with all the judges and so on and so on. And so Janice is trying to save her home. But I really feel as though if we had been organized, we could support Janice. We could write to the judges, we could write to her legislators, and we could get 5,000 people sending in letters, making telephone calls. But right now, the way we are, we couldn't get 500 people, much less 5,000 people, although I know they're out there. We just have no way of reaching them, and they have no way of reaching us. And even when they hear this show that you and I are talking, if we did not have shsmaryland.org, they would have no way of contacting me. It would just be nice. I heard this program and the lady said, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Is any of this making sense to you?
This is making perfect. No, this is making perfect sense to me. This is wonderful. I'm so excited. I hope that a lot of people. So if you're watching this, please go to shsmaryland.org.
Click on join a team.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully we get a lot of feedback from that. I think that it's so important for all of the reasons that you said, and really to come together and support people like Janice.
Yes. Yeah. She's done an awful lot of work. This girl has done, she knows more dirt on people like Mr. Cooper and these people who are stealing from people. She went down to Florida when Ocwen closed their offices or something, and she drove her rickety car down to Florida to interview people who had worked for Auckland. She's been one heck of an advocate. She really has worked very, very hard. And I haven't found the results of her grand jury hearing yet, but I'm anxious to talk with her. But here again, as I said, my overriding concern now is the fact that we've done everything. We've been in the courts. I've met with judges. We have done everything. The thing that we haven't done is just like the judge in Florida said, oh, no one's talking about this.
Yep.
No one's talking, because we're not organized to talk about it. We come on shows like this and nothing happens.
Yeah.
So that it needs to go like, what now? If you watch The Con, now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it's got to be the remedy lies in the courts. The remedy lies in the courts, that we have got to make these elected officials understand we're watching you. And we're watching everything you do. And when you rule and you wait for the next election, we're going to make you very uncomfortable. We had one judge who came and heard a case that was argued by one of the foremost attorneys here in Maryland. We worked very, very hard on that case because this attorney never wanted to come into my county because they felt my county is so corrupt. But I begged him to come and try a case here in our county. So unfortunately, the judge that we had was a judge that had been on the bench like 3 months. He had come from the Parks and Planning Commission. He didn't know anything about foreclosures, but we worked very hard to get a jury and everything. He dismissed the jury after 3 or 4 days of hearings this judge who knew nothing about foreclosures dismissed the jury and decided the case himself.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing that can happen? You can just be like, yeah, no, it's just going to be me now. What?
Yeah, how can he dismiss the jury? But he did under judge's discretion. He dismissed the jury, and the jury filed out after 3 or 4 days, and he said, I am deciding this case. Now here's someone deciding the case who didn't know jack about foreclosures, and he decided against us. And our attorney was so furious because it was a slam dunk. But this judge who knew nothing of, so when you talk about where the remedies lie and where the sheriff's, it lies with the courts and the elected officials. Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you how many elected officials with whom I've spoken. But the thing of it is that.
Yeah, can I just say something real quick? I mean, another thing that I haven't mentioned, Romy. I volunteer with Wolfpack. It's all about getting money out of politics, because that is, the fundamental corruption of our system. And it's very interesting when you think about judges, because we all think about them, we want to think about them. We want to ideally think about them as being impartial. But if our campaign finance system is how it is, and these things are allowed, right, and these contributions are allowed, dark money, corporate money, these kind of things, whatever, if those kind of things are allowed and we have elected judges, right, then that just translates to our justice being. We already see how our policy is corrupted. But to me, I mean, seeing that, I know that I'm kind of, this is my, red flags going off because this is something that I'm already very aware of or whatever. But I mean, this guy coming in seems to me like just going completely against everything and dismissing the jury. Like, I didn't even realize that can happen. I really didn't. That's absolutely insane. This guy who comes in 3 months and something that's a slam dunk turns on its head, and all of a sudden I just wonder who funded his campaign? Like, who guy in there? Like, who installed this man?
Hold on 1 second. He did run then he ran in an election. He ran for judge, mm-hmm. and then he ran for judge, and so that in the next election, which came up I think in November after our case, which I think was in March, in November he ran for the position to be a judge, mm-hmm. but we worked together to oust him, so we were able to get rid of him. But then he wanted to be a judge, and whatever money there was, it was only because of the people and that we organized that we were able to keep him from being elected.
That's
Even
right.
though he had the money, we had the people.
Yeah.
Like Bernie Sanders said, we had the So this is the reason I'm like, that was like a shot across my bow with the fact that we have to be able to organize people.
That's right. And
people, not only that, are going to have to, you got to show them what's in it for them. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I talked with part of our legal team and I said, just like the guy who had the $124 million and he gave himself a bonus, right. Where is that money? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, we got to fight for this, whether we can get it or not. Let's see how much money we can get back to the people who lost their homes.
That's right.
How much money can we get back for the people whose homes were sold and they made a fortune? Yeah. Why can't we fight for that?
Yeah.
Why can't we fight for that, whether we get it or not? Why can't we not fight for that? These people lost their whole entire lives. Mm-hmm. Were decimated in this 2008 meltdown. And people made millions off the backs of these people. Why can't we go to the court and be like the Republicans are doing now? Mm-hmm. And, they're fighting dirty. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? In such a way that I feel like the Dems are not fighting. Mm-hmm. They're doing stuff that we would not, we're polite.
Yeah.
There was a time when politics was polite. You may not know what was going on behind the scenes, but at least when they got on television, they were civil and nice. Mm-hmm. Now it's street fighting.
Food fight. It's just like throwing eggs at each other. You know what I mean? Like, what is happening?
There's nothing dignified in politics anymore.
Yeah.
However that came to be, and there are people really who have an idea about that, how that came to be. And I don't want to wax political, but I'm really saying power to the people.
Absolutely.
We've got to organize grassroots people. We've got to show them what's in it for them. Why should they do this? And people like Why can they not have the money back from the house that was stolen from them by someone who had no right to take it?
Yeah.
Why can they not be given the proceeds from the sale of that house? Why? Because we're not fighting for that. Because they feel like, oh well, it's already done. It's done and over with. Well, it's only done and over with because we are letting it be done and over with.
That's right.
And so for the grassroots people, we've got to be able to show them that there is something in this battle and a reason why you need to put your shoulder to the wheel. There's something in this for you. You know, we just can't just go and go this philosophical crap that we hear talking, you know, all lofty language. We got to say, we're going to get you some money. You know, we're going to get you some money because your house was stolen. We're going to build you a tiny house. You know, we've got to do that, you know, and this needs to be the concentration. And so my daughter said to me, and she hears me talking about foreclosures almost every day. And she came upstairs and she said to me, I haven't heard you talk about foreclosures recently. I said, because right now I'm talking about organizing people. And I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about how we're going to go into court now and fight a foreclosure. That's off my mind because we're not going to win. We are not going to win. We just won a case here in Maryland. And the same case that I'm talking about, where he dismissed a jury, the judges in the appeals court ruled in our favor. But you know what? The case was something they call unreported. If it's unreported, you cannot use it as a precedent. You can't even refer to it in cases, you know, that are coming up.
What? Why?
It was unreported.
What was the reason for that? Was there a reason why it was considered unreported?
Sure,
what makes that?
They don't want you the judges don't want you using that as a precedent.
No, I mean, I understand the kind of the nefarious reason. What I'm wondering about is like, what is their stated reason?
Oh, they don't state the reason. They just tell you you can't.
Oh,
yeah. No, they don't state the reason.
It's amazing. It's just amazing. We're like, we have the system. We abide by these rules. Blah, 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 blah. And then things happen where you're just like, no, that's against the rules, but it doesn't matter. Like nobody, you know, but like you said, I mean, that's the whole point, I think, of what you're saying is they'll get away with whatever they can get away with until the people come together and rise up and fight back. So
that's right. But we've got to come together as a group. Thank God for Zoom once again. Like I said, all these lawyers, they need to get together. All the financial people need to get together. They've got to come up with what they're trying to do and let their decision be for the people. We've got to get the Spanish speaking people. As a matter of fact, the guy that does some work for me, you know, blah, blah, blah. I talked to his wife and she's very, 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 and I said, you know, and I told her about it. She said, oh, come on, Liz, I'll get our Spanish people together. And so she's getting the Spanish speaking community together. And so now the churches, I talked with someone. I said, okay, go to your church, and this is what we want the churches to do. So I've got a chairperson for my faith-based community now. Now I'm trying to get a chairperson for my fraternities and my sororities, so they can just get their information, their contact information, so that when our writing team writes a press release, the team that does all of the our political action team knows who we need to send it to. They've got all the contact information. They've got their addresses, their phone numbers, and all their contact information, their email addresses, who their AA is, you know, so that we can be able to just hit the button and send it out. So this is how I feel like we've got to organize.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It sounds like you're right on the right path here. I love it. I love it.
So I hope so. As I said, I wrote to somebody and I said, please tell me if this makes sense. Because it's very difficult when you're keeping counsel in your own brain and you think, you know, your idea is like, you know, like the Rosetta Stone or something like that.
But I hear you. I have to say something out loud to like a trusted friend sometimes, just to be like, am I? Or just even say it out loud to myself sometimes, just to see how it sounds coming out. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, no, maybe not. Anyway, whatever. That's me. I'm weird. Thank you so much for coming on, Liz. I appreciate so much not only you taking the time to talk to me and share this with our viewers, but also just, man, everything that you're doing. Like, this is why I do this show.
I'm grateful for you. I'm very, very grateful for you. I really am. And you bring such exuberance to your job, which is really great. And you're a good interviewer. I'm very proud of you. And so keep on doing what you're doing and be in touch. Be in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
And talk again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching the Up and Up today. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you have the opportunity, if you have the means, I guess I should say, you can support us on Patreon. We are completely grassroots funded, so that would be wonderful. Patreon / Real Progressives. And please look into, now I'm going to say it wrong, Housing Solutions.
Strategic Housing Solutions. shsmaryland.org.
All right. I knew I was going to say it wrong. I remember 2 out of 3 of the words. I feel like that's good. Whatever. All right, y'all. Have a great day, and thank you for watching. I'm going to...